After going in circle for more than 20 years of work, it feels like my life has somehow returned to the starting point. Hello everyone, I'm John, a man living and working in China. In this video, I want to show you the thoughts and feelings of a 40-year-old man in the workplace. This is the part you don't usually see in other vlogs. Trust me, after watching this, you might realize this is what many working men in China truly go through. If you've experienced something similar, please leave a comment and tell me. Maybe we can turn our pain into strength and get through the hard times together. The new year has passed just like that, without me even noticing. And now I have to go back to my ox and horse life again. Ox and horse life is a term that comes from the Chinese internet. It describes a life of hardship and exhaustion, like an ox or a horse that has to keep working non-stop. I stayed home for 10 days in total. Yes, I went back on February 10th and returned to Guangdong on February 21st because we resumed work on February 24th. That day is the 8th day of the Lunar New Year. In China, the number 8 is considered lucky. It sounds like prosper or getting rich. So many business owners choose that day to reopen, hoping for good fortune and prosperity in the coming year. I came back 2 days earlier because I was afraid of traffic. I have a 1.5-year-old child, and if we're stuck on the road for too long, and if he poops in his diaper, that would be a very bad experience. So we decided to leave earlier. In China, there is a period called Chunyun. Literally, you might think it means the beginning of spring transportation, but that's not what it is. What it really means is a massive human migration and traffic congestion on a huge scale. When you're on the highway and all you can see is an endless line of cars stretching into the distance, that's when you finally understand, maybe I really am a descendant of the dragon. The 2026 Chunyun period lasts from February 2nd to March 13th, a total of 40 days. According to official statistics, during these 40 days, there are 9.5 billion passenger trips across different regions of the country. But the most extreme congestion usually happens in the 7 days before the New Year and the 7 days after. So what does cross-regional travel actually mean? Let me give you an example. Take me, for instance. On normal days, I go to work at the factory, then back to my rented room, work, home, work, home. My life runs along these two fixed points. Out of 365 days a year, there's very little time when I leave this track. But once the company goes on holiday, a large number of people like me return to our hometowns, travel, or visit relatives. That's how those staggering numbers of trips are created. And cities like Shenzhen suddenly turn into empty cities because almost everyone has left. After the New Year in China, people begin returning to their original tracks again. And that is the root cause of the congestion. Sometimes I ask myself, I work more than 300 days a year. Is it all just for those 10 or so days of freedom at home? Is this really my life? It sounds almost like a cliche. When will I finally be able to plan my own time? Looking back, my career has not been a success. I started working at 18. I entered the manufacturing industry. You may only know the words made in China, but you don't know who made it. What is manufacturing really like? Many people imagine it as high-tech, automated, clean and organized. But what I stepped into was noise. The roar of machines, the sound of metal colliding, oil stains, sweat, the dusty smell in the air. For 22 years, I have been working in this kind of environment. For me, manufacturing has been the hardest job. In these 22 years, I have worked for 7 companies, including the one I started myself, that makes 8. Fortunately, in China, changing jobs frequently is not necessarily seen as disloyal. I've heard that in Japan, there used to be a system of lifetime employment. Frequent job changes could be questioned. Some people spend their whole life working for one company. And that's a good thing, but that's something I cannot do. This is just my personal experience. I need to breathe fresh air. I need to learn new skills. I need to be exposed to new things. In your working world, do you improve yourself by changing jobs like I do? Let me know in the comments. Maybe we are walking the same path. My first job was arranged by my school. It was a state-owned enterprise, a publicly listed company. The branch I worked for was in the powder processing industry. Production ran 24 hours a day, divided into 3 shifts, 8 hours each. The hardest one was the night shift, from midnight to 8 a.m. Although it was only 8 short hours, it felt longer than 8 a.m. to midnight, especially between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. I felt like a phone with only 1% battery left, still running but ready to shut down at any moment. After every shift, I was like a machine about to fall apart. My whole body was covered in dust. Even though I wore a mask, the inside of my nose was still a terrible sight. When I returned to the dormitory, I spent half an hour showering, then washing clothes, then sleeping. I would fall asleep around 9:30 inches the morning and wake up at 6 inches the afternoon. There was no time for lunch because my brain hadn't even powered on yet. I only ate twice a day, morning and evening. At 8 p.m., I would go back to sleep again until around 11 p.m. and then another miserable shift would begin. Fortunately, that working condition lasted only 1 year. After that, a former senior from my school promoted me. He trained me to become a technical worker. Later, I became his assistant, handling simple departmental tasks such as work assignments. Here, I would like to thank him. He changed the direction of my career. There is one thing I still remember very clearly. In our department, there was a person who had some connection with the company leader. When I assigned him tasks, he completely ignored me. When I reported the situation to my supervisor told me to endure it. From that moment on, I understood something. In the workplace, relationships between people can be very complicated. Another thing that left a deep impression on me was this. After working in that company for some time, a classmate and I pooled our money to buy a desktop computer. It was the first time in my life that I owned my own computer. That was around the middle of 2004. I started using it to study and for entertainment. Influenced by my roommates, I fell in love with American movies during that time. The feeling was truly amazing, even though I was just in a simple dorm room. I stayed in that company for more than 3 years. After that, I decided to leave. I felt that in an environment where seniority was valued above everything else, it was difficult for someone like me, just out of school, to have opportunities for advancement. I was still young. I needed to go out and see the world. When I left that company, I left the computer to my classmate. Looking back, my first job was already 20 years ago. I have lost contact with many of my former colleagues. However, there are still a few that I keep in touch with. Just last year, we had dinner together. Before leaving that company, I made plans in advance. I clearly remember that a supplier once told me about another company that was hiring. He even gave me their contact number. So I called. Hello, is this Mr. Deng? On the other end, the response was, does my voice sound like a man's? I felt extremely embarrassed and quickly said, I'm sorry. We then arranged an interview time. After that, I asked my supervisor for leave and went to the interview. There was one particularly awkward moment during the interview that I will probably never forget. For some reason, I reached out my hand to shake hands, but the awkward part was, she didn't extend her hand. At that moment, I really wished the ground would open up and swallow me. That was my first job interview. For 40 years, I have only shaken hands with two women. One was during a business visit. The other was at my wedding with my wife's supervisor. In both cases, they extended their hand first. Looking back now, it was completely normal that the interviewer did not shake hands with me. Fortunately, the interviewer accepted me. She also agreed that I could start 1 month later because I needed that time to resign from my previous company. 1 month later, I began working there. It was a branch of a Taiwanese company. The production department only had 2 sections, and the entire company had just over 40 employees. It was a relatively small company. After joining, I learned that the interviewer was actually the factory manager. At that time, she was already in her 40s. She was a woman who chose not to marry. Her handwriting was very beautiful, strong and powerful, almost like a man. When I started there, I became a subordinate of one of the department leaders. Time passed quickly. I received my first salary, a little over 2,200 yuan. That was in the second half of 2006. I was satisfied because in my previous company, my salary had never exceeded 1,500 yuan. I wonder, how much did you earn per month in 2006? However, the work here was even harder. There were 2 shifts, each lasting 12 hours. I had to work night shift again. About 10 months later, my supervisor left the company. It was quite unexpected because on the day, the factory manager locked my supervisor's computer. I did not know what had happened. The next day, the factory manager called me for a meeting. After that, I took over the department and my salary increased by 500 yuan. I was only 21 years old at the time. Of course, the department was not very large. When I first took over, there were fewer than 30 people. By the time I left, the department had grown to more than 50 employees. As a middle-level manager, do you know what the most painful thing is? At the beginning of 2008, my female factory manager, the one who was a non-married advocate, was transferred to another company to take on a new role. After that, someone else took over the branch. To be honest, I truly respected her. Really. She was very capable. I respected her a lot. After she left, a man took over the position. But personally, I prefer the previous factory manager. I believe that as a manager, you should consider both the company's development and profits, as well as the employees' well-being. However, my later supervisor did not balance these 2 aspects well, so I was caught between my superior and dozens of colleagues. That was painful. My concerns were not resolved. My suggestions were not supported. At the same time, more importantly, I had new plans for my career. In the first half of 2009, I decided to leave. My supervisor tried to persuade me to stay, and even the leadership at the head office hoped that I would remain, but I still chose to leave. I did not feel regret about leaving because it was just one footprint in my life, nor did I feel any special satisfaction because the next job I took only lasted 3 months and then my employer decided to let me go. What I truly regret is this. During my second job, I failed to seize an opportunity for career transformation. I'm not sure how familiar you are with online shopping in China, but today it is extremely developed. Back in 2007, a classmate of mine was working in Shanghai. Her company was selling branded sports shoes. At the time, her company was looking for people to help with sales. They would provide the products, images, and support. All you had to do was register an online store and manage it. When a customer placed an order, her company would handle the shipping and after-sale service. I decided to try it, so I bought a laptop for over 4,000 yuan. It was a relatively basic model, and it overheated constantly. Yes, it overheated all the time. Sometimes I jokingly thought I could use it to cook an egg. After work and on weekend, I spent my time running the store. I did sell some shoes and I did make some money. But later, my classmate's company went out of business and I stopped running the store. Looking back, I realized that I gave up mainly because I did not know that I could source products from other platforms as well. Because of that, I missed the rapid growth period of e-commerce. In school, teachers are very important in society. Mentors are equally important. If someone can guide you, if someone can share experiences with you, you can avoid many unnecessary detours. Unfortunately, I did not have such a person around me. Just like today, when I became a YouTuber, I am doing it alone, learning by myself, learning how to edit videos, learning how to register an account, learning how to operate the channel and receive payments. And my current work is completely unrelated to YouTube. Looking back at my previous two jobs, my career path seemed to be improving. In my early 20s, I was already leading a team of dozens of people. Perhaps, in the eyes of my peers, I was doing quite well. But why did my third job last only 3 months? Before I was let go by my employer, what exactly did I go through? This is the journey of a working class man in China. It is a little heavy, but it is real. I will continue to share my life experiences with you, the parts that you don't usually see in other vlogs. If you find it interesting, please remember to like and subscribe. Your support is the greatest motivation for me to keep creating. See you in the next episode. Bye bye.